Hi, my name is Gareth Haysom. I'm an urban food systems researcher working at the African Centre for Cities at the University of Cape Town. I'll be talking through a few of emerging concepts as these pertain to urban food systems work in African and southern cities, but many of these concepts and ideas have relevance to all cities. This presentation is on the role that the past processes, and particularly the historical structuring of a national and local food system, plays in how the food systems of today function. This presentation will first describe some of the historical approaches to food governance, and then use a case study of the South African food system to reflect on why a historical approach is useful while engaging food systems change at the urban scale. Part 1, Histories Matter. When engaging questions of the urban food system, it is essential to reflect on how history and context intersect to form the food systems of today. As a policy actor or development process thinker, it is important to look forward and to anticipate the trends that are taking place, and then endeavour to engage those challenges that one might face in the present, while at the same time decide how those challenges can be addressed into the future. It is equally important to reflect on how the food system has been structured historically. Historical foundational processes have in many cases locked in physical, cultural, and political understandings of the food systems that we have today. This is not just a question of how things have been done at a national level. We have a multitude of processes at the global level and at the regional level that all intersect to dictate how the food system is understood, how different policies have been developed, and why they've been developed, but also who is tasked with acting on the food system, who is tasked with governing the food system, who writes the policies, and why have particular processes played out in the manner that they have. Perhaps one of the most striking examples of this is the formation of the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, the FAO, an organization that has led the way in understanding what food security is, but at the same time is part of global processes associated with the geopolitics at the end of the Second World War. These processes create the global governance structure that sought to direct how global agriculture system developed and was structured. During these post-World War II processes, the eventual design of the FAO meant that developed countries were seen as providing technological support and advice to the developing countries. This reflects a deeply problematic position, as there was a lot of knowledge in the developing countries. At that time, specifically the start of the so-called Cold War, this also meant that the processes were locked into these fractured geopolitical structures. The founding director of the FAO, Boyd Orr, held an ambition for the FAO as being built on a global food pact, a treaty in which no country went without food. Colonial structures and systems, colonial processes across the African continent saw the separation of individuals, what in South Africa was referred to as apartheid. This meant that different groups had different access to the food system, different access to stores, to markets, etc. How cities engaged that market, and who was allowed to trade, what foods were allowed to be traded, and even in some cases the prices were dictated by colonial authorities. The legacy of these policies remain embedded within many urban food governance approaches to this day, bylaws, zoning, land use regulations, etc. These histories can be observed spatially in many African cities, from place names to the locations and control measures associated with food markets and trading areas. That for those who want to plan and strategize and seek to engage in questions of urban food systems, need to actively consider the history of a particular site, understanding the city and the site of struggle in far greater historical detail. To demonstrate this, I will now reflect on the South African food system. This is not unique, and the histories mirror many countries of the South. But it demonstrated the utility of using a historical lens as a component of wider urban food systems change processes.